So, the first book that I chose is called Those Shoes, and it's by Mary Beth Bolts. And this book is about a kid who's too poor to have shoes, and his grandma finally buys him a pair of shoes, but they're too small, or they're too big for him, they won't fit him. So, he actually winds up giving it to another boy who's in need of new shoes as well because they fit him better. And I thought this book was really good for um, teaching students about poverty and stuff like that because I think it's a very real issue, and especially if I were teaching in a school where it was like more lower socioeconomic and that was kind of normal, that way it would like draw attention for the students to realize that like not everyone has a lot of money for shoes and that kind of thing. The next book that I chose is Froggy's Day with Dad by Jonathan London. And in this book, it's basically about Froggy's Day with his dad. I think it's a Father's Day book, but I think that could still be used if I were to incorporate like a dad day at my school or like in my classroom. And so it would be a good book just to talk about fathers because I think there's not a huge emphasis on fathers. I think moms are the ones that are super involved. So I think this would be good to bring into the classroom for that purpose. Families Are Different is the next book because I think this really promotes diversity in families. It's by Mina Pellegrini. And I really like this book because it was about a girl who was adopted. And she was kind of talking about like her family dynamic is different. And she didn't realize that like, I just lost my train of thought. She didn't realize that like there are other families who are different, who have different races in their families and like they're adopted or they're divorced and just how families look different and stuff like that. So I think this would be a good book to use in my classroom if I were to like talk about something like that, especially I think with most of these books that are kind of like controversial in a way, I think I would use them if that subject was brought up in my classroom, and it would be good to like address that and discuss it. But I don't think I would just like have it in my classroom library all the time, especially with some of these that'll get to, they're kind of like more sensitive topics that I wouldn't want to introduce right off the bat. The next book I have are the Berenstain Bears books, and I brought some of these from home because my mom and dad always read these books to us, and they're like a whole lot of good life lessons, so I kind of chose some that kind of had to do with what we talked about in school, home, and community. So this one is The Berenstain Bears Learn About Strangers, and this is by Jan Berenstain. And so basically the point of this book is Mama Bear is teaching Sister and Brother Bear how like you can't trust everyone, but they don't say it in so many words. They're kind of talking about how like some people may seem nice and they're not really nice people, and you kind of just have to be cautious. And as a child, like you should always have your parent around, not talk to strangers. This would be a book that I would definitely have in my library for students to have all the time, because then I think it's a good life lesson to have, because I was always raised to like don't talk to strangers and stuff, but some kids, their parents may not be talking to them about that often. And I think it's good to remind students like we don't talk to strangers unless you have a parent or a guardian or someone that you trust nearby who knows them and that kind of thing. So this would be a good one to definitely have in my classroom. This is another Berenstain Bears book. The Berenstain Bears Think of Those in Need, which I really liked this. I think this was supposed to be a Christmas book because at the end of the book, I think it's like a Christmas scene. So this would be a really good book to bring out in the holiday season. Basically, the premise of the book is they realized that they had a lot of stuff in their home, and so they took out the stuff in their closets that like they didn't really need and that someone else could use that were poor and in need. So they went to like a nursing home and like a Salvation Army type of place and a kids hospital and just donated their toys and things that like other people could use, which I definitely think is a good thing to encourage students because especially during the holiday season, people tend to be greedy, and I think it's good to remind kids that like it's not all about the gifts, it's about other people as well. This is another book that I brought from home. It's called The Legend of the Valentine by Catherine Grace Bond, and this would be a book that I would definitely have to read during Valentine's Day because it's clearly a Valentine's Day book. But in this story, it's about a boy who has a dad who's in jail. And you can also see that he's black, so that also brings the whole racist dynamic into it because, like, the kids bully him at school for being black. And so he goes home and tells his grandma about, like, how he's being bullied for being black and how he just misses his dad and all this stuff. So then she tells him the story of St. Valentine, which is the real story of where, like, Valentine's Day comes from. And so I think it's really good to talk about that. And then it brings up obviously don't bully people because of their skin color and that kind of thing. So it brings a lot of different dynamics into this book. So I really liked this book. My mom always read it to me at Valentine's Day. This book is called The Shoebox, and it's by Francine Rivers. It's just another book that I read as a kid. And this one kind of brings up the issue of, because the kid in this book is a foster kid, and he has a shoebox that he takes from house to house, like different foster houses, and he puts in little memories from that house into that box. And then finally he gets to a home that he really likes, and the parents like adopt him, I think, and everything. And so he like gives the box to Jesus at a Christmas play. Like he's letting go of his past and embracing like his new family and everything. And this would just be a good book to read at Christmas time, but also like the kid in it is a foster kid, so like your students may not like be aware of what that means or what that looks like, and so I think this would be a good book to kind of talk about that. And it's a Christmas book too, so it's a holiday themed book. I also have another Berenstain Bears book. This one is the Berenstain Bears. I don't think I did this one. Oops. Actually, I'll just talk about both of these, so I'll have more than 10. This one is about the Berenstain Bears and the in crowd, which is about how Sister Bear wants to hang out with the cool bears at her school, and she tries to change how she dresses so she can fit in with them, and then she realizes that like that's not what's important. It's on the inside that counts, which I think is a really good thing to bring up, especially with girls, because I know in my elementary world, when I was in elementary, that like all of the issues were with the girl drama all the time in elementary. And so I think this would be good to talk about, like, well, like, there's mean girls and there are nice girls, but, like, and there's some people who have more things than us and seem better than us, but, like, that doesn't matter. What's on the inside that counts, and you shouldn't try to change yourself to fit in. And this one, I don't think I put this one in my, I didn't put this one in my PowerPoint, but I had it in my stack. This one is just about pollution and, like, talking about saving the earth and stuff like that. So I just grabbed that one, too, because I thought that would also fit. This other one is a really good book. It's Tell Me Again About the Night I Was Born by Jamie Lee Curtis. And I really love this book. Like, I wasn't adopted or anything, but, like, if I were to adopt a child in the future, I think I would definitely read this book. It made me, like, emotional, and I wasn't even adopted or anything. It was just it's a really sweet book about parents telling their daughter about the night that she was born and how they flew out to see her and get her in the hospital, and it just really emphasized that, like, yeah, maybe you weren't born in your mommy's tummy, but, like, you were born in another mommy's tummy, but we are mom and dad, and that kind of thing. And it was just really sweet, and it was a good way. I think it put adoption in a positive light, because I think some kids may feel like it's a negative thing, and they feel different, and I think this is, like, a really good book. I'm not sure if I would have this in my classroom, per se, just because, like, especially if there weren't any kids that were adopted in my classroom, and it may raise some questions, but I think if there were students in my classroom that had been adopted, or I would encourage their parents on the side to maybe bring this book out and talk to their kids about it if they were struggling with adoption. And then this other book is Stella Brings the Family, and this is about a girl who has like a Mother's Day type of thing at her school, but she has 2 dads. And this would be a book that would be kind of hard to know when to bring into the classroom, just because, like, you don't want to seem like you're promoting something, because then that could bring more problems than it's worth. But it's something that, like, I might consider having in my classroom, just depending on, like, where we're at in society with gay marriage, how, like, if it's still super controversial and that kind of thing. And so it was a good book, and I think it would be good definitely for a student who had gay parents. Just kind of say, like, yeah, it's different, but that's okay. We all have different families, and I think I would only bring that book out in case there was a situation like that in my classroom where there was a student with gay parents, and I needed to address that in my classroom. But other than that, I don't think I would, like, bring it out necessarily to cause more issues than is necessary. So those are my books.